The doorbell rang at precisely 7 p.m. Mark Wilson smoothed down his freshly ironed shirt, took a deep breath, and opened the door with a practiced smile. The smile froze on his face. Standing before him wasn't the blind date his sister had arranged, it was Catherine Pierce, his intimidating boss's recently divorced ex-wife. What happened next would change both their lives forever. "Catherine?" Mark managed, his voice barely audible over the pounding of his heart. "What are you doing here?" Catherine's long silky hair cascaded over her shoulders as she tilted her head in confusion. Her white skin flushed slightly as recognition dawned in her eyes. "Mark? You're my blind date?" She clutched her purse tighter. "Emma set me up with you?" Mark's mind raced. Emma, his sister and Catherine's yoga instructor, had arranged this? The same Emma who knew exactly who his boss was? The same boss who still harbored intense feelings for the woman standing at his doorstep? "Dad? Who's at the door?" 10-year-old Lily appeared behind him, her curious eyes taking in the elegant woman on their porch. Before Mark could answer, his phone buzzed with a text. It was from Emma. "Sorry, bro. Last-minute change. Your original date cancelled. Catherine needed this. Trust me. You both do." Mark looked up from his phone to find Catherine watching him with those piercing blue eyes that had always made him nervous at company functions. But tonight, something was different. There was vulnerability there he'd never seen before. "Would you like to come in?" he asked, stepping aside. "I made dinner." Catherine hesitated, then nodded. "I'd like that." As she stepped into his modest home, Mark couldn't help but wonder if he was making the biggest mistake of his career, or perhaps the best decision of his life. 3 weeks earlier, Mark had been summoned to Richard Pierce's corner office. The company's CEO rarely spoke directly to mid-level marketing managers like Mark, so his stomach had been in knots as he'd knocked on the imposing mahogany door. "Wilson, sit down," Richard had said without looking up from his computer. "I need someone to head the new campaign for Lux Cosmetics. Jenkins recommended you." Mark had nearly fallen out of his chair. The Lux account was the biggest the company had landed in years. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." Richard had finally looked up, his steely gaze locking with Mark's. "This isn't just any campaign. It's personal. My ex-wife's company." Mark had known, of course. Everyone at Pierce Marketing knew that Lux Cosmetics was founded by Catherine Pierce, Richard's ex-wife of just 6 months. What no one understood was why she'd chosen her ex-husband's firm to handle her marketing. "I trust you'll be professional," Richard had continued. "Catherine can be difficult. But she's brilliant. Don't let her walk all over you." Now, as Catherine settled onto his couch while Lily excitedly showed her a school art project, Mark wondered what Richard would think if he could see them now. His ex-wife and his employee, about to share a romantic dinner. "Your daughter is lovely," Catherine said as Lily ran off to her room. "How long have you been raising her alone?" 3 years, Mark replied, pouring her a glass of wine. Her mother decided parenthood wasn't for her and moved to Europe with her yoga instructor. Catherine's eyebrows rose. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Lily and I make a good team." Mark's smile was genuine now, relaxed. "Though I admit, dating as a single dad has been challenging." "I can imagine." Catherine took a sip of wine. "Almost as challenging as dating as the ex-wife of the most controlling man in Chicago." Mark nearly choked on his wine. "Is that how you see Richard? Isn't that how everyone sees him?" Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "I couldn't possibly comment on my boss's personality," Mark replied with a straight face, then broke into a grin. "At least not until after the second glass of wine." Catherine laughed, a rich, melodious sound that transformed her face. Mark realized he'd never heard her laugh before. At company events, she'd always been poised, reserved, the perfect CEO's wife. "So," she said, leaning forward slightly, "you're the one Richard assigned to my account. Guilty as charged. And now we're on a blind date." "Apparently so. Doesn't that strike you as complicated?" Mark considered this as he stirred the pasta sauce. Life is complicated. Pasta sauce doesn't have to be. He offered her a taste from the wooden spoon. Catherine's lips closed around the spoon, her eyes never leaving his. "Delicious," she murmured. The air between them suddenly felt charged with something more than professional awkwardness. Mark cleared his throat. "I should check on Lily. Dinner's almost ready." As he walked away, he couldn't help but wonder what he was getting himself into. Richard Pierce was known for his vindictive streak. If he found out Mark was having dinner with Catherine, even an accidental dinner, there would be consequences. But as he watched Catherine help Lily set the table, laughing at his daughter's jokes, Mark found himself caring less and less about those consequences. Dinner was surprisingly easy. Catherine asked Lily thoughtful questions about school and her friends. She listened attentively to Mark's stories about client mishaps. She even shared a few amusing anecdotes about starting her cosmetics company. "So why did you choose Pierce Marketing?" Mark finally asked as they cleared the dishes. Lily had gone to finish homework before bedtime. Catherine's expression grew serious. "Because despite everything, Richard is the best at what he does. And I need the best. Lux is struggling." She hesitated. "Let's just say I have a lot riding on this new line. More than Richard knows." "You can trust me," Mark said, surprised by how much he meant it. Catherine studied him for a long moment. "Maybe I can." That would be refreshing. Later, after Lily was tucked in bed, they sat on the porch swing with fresh glasses of wine. The spring night was cool but pleasant. "I should go," Catherine said, making no move to leave. "Probably," Mark agreed, equally stationary. "This is a terrible idea," she continued, turning slightly toward him. "The worst," he nodded, his eyes dropping briefly to her lips. "If Richard found out, I'd be fired immediately. And my contract would mysteriously develop problems." Mark sighed. "So we agree. This can't happen again." "Absolutely not," Catherine said firmly. Their eyes met, and Mark felt something shift between them, something inevitable. "Unless," he began. "Unless?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Unless we're very, very careful." Catherine's smile was slow and deliberate. "I'm excellent at careful, Mark Wilson." As she leaned toward him, Mark knew he was crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But as their lips met in a kiss that started gentle and quickly blazed into something more, he couldn't bring himself to care. The next morning, Mark arrived at work to find an email requesting his presence in Richard's office immediately. His stomach dropped. Had Richard somehow found out already? "Wilson," Richard greeted him, gesturing to a chair. "How's the Lux campaign coming?" "Good progress, sir. I've scheduled a meeting with Mrs. Pierce, with Catherine, for next week to discuss concepts." Richard's jaw tightened at the mention of his ex-wife's name. "I want daily updates on this." "And Wilson? Remember what I said about Catherine. She can be persuasive when she wants something." "If only you knew," Mark thought, keeping his face carefully neutral. "I understand, sir." As he left Richard's office, Mark's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Dinner was lovely. Lunch today? K." Mark knew he should say no. He knew this was playing with fire. But his fingers typed, "Name the place," before he could stop himself. Over the next 2 weeks, Mark and Catherine developed a routine. Professional meetings at the office with Richard occasionally looming in the background. secret lunches at out-of-the-way cafes. And twice, when Lily was at sleepovers, Catherine had come to his house for dinner and stayed until morning. They were careful. So careful. But Mark couldn't shake the feeling that they were living on borrowed time. "What are we doing, Catherine?" he asked one night as they lay tangled together on his couch. She traced patterns on his chest with her fingertip. "Something reckless. Is that all it is to you? Rebellion against Richard?" Catherine propped herself up to look at him. "Is that what you think?" "I don't know what to think. You're you. And I'm just a mid-level manager with a kid and a mortgage." "Just?" She shook her head. "There's nothing just about you, Mark Wilson. You're kind and brilliant and funny. You're an amazing father. And you see me, really see me, not as Richard's ex or as the Lux CEO, but as me." Mark pulled her closer. "I'm falling for you, Catherine. And it terrifies me. Because of Richard? Because of everything. Richard. Our work. Lily. The fact that you could have anyone." Catherine kissed him softly. "I don't want anyone. I want you." The words hung between them, fragile and precious. Mark wanted desperately to believe them. Even if it means risking everything. "Some things," Catherine whispered against his lips, "are worth the risk." The campaign presentation was scheduled for Monday morning. Mark had worked tirelessly, pouring everything he had into making it perfect. Not just for his career, but for Catherine. Sunday night, his doorbell rang unexpectedly. Catherine stood there, her face pale. "Richard knows," she said without preamble. Mark felt the blood drain from his face. "How?" "Someone from the office saw us at Marino's on Friday." She stepped inside, pacing his living room. "He called me, Mark. He was. I've never heard him so angry." "What did he say?" "That he'd pull the campaign. That he'd make sure you never worked in marketing again." Her voice broke. "That he'd use his connections to create problems for Lux." Mark sank onto the couch. "He can't do that." "He can try." Catherine sat beside him, taking his hands. "I'm so sorry, Mark. This is my fault." "No," he said firmly. "We both knew the risks. What are we going to do?" Before Mark could answer, Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Dad? Is everything okay?" Mark forced a smile. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Catherine just stopped by to talk about work." Lily studied them both with surprising perception for a 10-year-old. "You look sad." Catherine composed herself quickly. "Just tired, Lily. Big presentation tomorrow." "Dad's presentations are always the best," Lily said with absolute confidence. "He stays up late making them perfect." "I know he does," Catherine smiled at the girl. "Your dad is pretty special." After Lily returned to bed, Mark turned to Catherine. "I'll resign tomorrow." "Before the presentation?" "No." Catherine's response was immediate. "You can't let Richard win like that." "I won't let him hurt you or your company. And I won't let him destroy your career." Catherine's determination was palpable. "We're going to do the presentation exactly as planned. And then we'll deal with Richard." "How?" Catherine's smile was both sad and resolute. "I have an idea. But you need to trust me." "I do trust you," Mark said, realizing how completely he meant it. She kissed him then, a kiss that felt like both a promise and a goodbye. Monday morning arrived with a sense of impending doom. Mark entered the conference room to find Richard already there, his expression thunderous. Catherine arrived moments later, the picture of professional composure in a tailored suit, her long hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. "Let's get this over with," Richard said coldly. Mark began his presentation, his voice steady despite his racing heart. He outlined the campaign strategy, showed the mock-ups, presented the market research. It was his best work, and he knew it. When he finished, the room was silent. Even Richard looked impressed despite himself. "Questions?" Mark asked. "Just one," Catherine said, standing. "Richard, do you agree this campaign is exceptional?" Richard's jaw tightened. "The work is adequate." "It's brilliant and you know it," Catherine countered. "Which leaves us with a decision." "What decision?" Richard asked warily. "Whether your personal feelings are more important than business." Catherine's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. "Because I'm prepared to take my business elsewhere if you can't separate the two." Richard's face flushed with anger. "You wouldn't dare. Try me." Catherine's gaze never wavered. "And before you threaten Mark again, know that I've already spoken to Jenkins about bringing him to Lux as our in-house marketing director if you force my hand." The room went deadly quiet. Mark stared at Catherine in shock. "You'd poach my employee?" Richard's voice was dangerously low. "I'd rescue a brilliant marketer from a toxic environment," Catherine corrected. "Your choice, Richard." For a moment, Mark thought Richard might explode. Then, surprisingly, he laughed, a short, harsh sound. "You always were ruthless, Catherine. It's what I admired about you." He turned to Mark. "And you?" "I underestimated you, Wilson." "Sir, I..." Richard held up a hand. "Save it. The campaign stays. You stay. But understand this. I won't tolerate being made a fool of. Whatever is happening between you two, keep it out of my office." With that, he stood and left the room. Mark exhaled slowly. Did that just happen? Catherine's professional mask slipped, revealing relief. "I think we just won. You offered me a job." "I meant it," she said quietly. "But I hope you don't need it." Mark shook his head in amazement. "You're incredible, you know that?" "So I've been told," she smiled. "Now, about that dinner tonight. Are you sure? After all this?" Catherine moved closer, her voice for his ears only. "Mark Wilson, I've spent too many years letting fear dictate my choices. I'm done with that. I want you. I want Lily. I want the life we could build together. Even with all the complications. Especially with the complications." Her eyes shone with certainty. "They're what make it real." As they left the conference room together, maintaining a professional distance that fooled no one, Mark felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. Not just for himself, but for the future he could now imagine with Catherine and Lily. Life was indeed complicated. But sometimes, the most complicated paths led to the most beautiful destinations. 6 months later, Mark stood in his kitchen, watching through the window as Catherine helped Lily plant flowers in their garden. His phone buzzed with a text from Richard. "Wilson, the Q3 numbers for Lux are impressive. Whatever else I think about you two, you make a good team." Mark smiled. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly, but it was something. A recognition, perhaps, that some connections were worth respecting, even if you didn't understand them. Outside, Catherine looked up and caught his eye, her smile radiant in the summer sunshine. She mouthed 3 words they'd only recently begun to say aloud. Mark mouthed them back, his heart full. Sometimes the most unexpected doorbell could lead to the most extraordinary journey. And Mark Wilson, who had once been afraid to take chances, now couldn't imagine his life any other way. If you enjoyed this story of unexpected love and second chances, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories that remind us all that life's most beautiful moments often come when we least expect them. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Leave your country in the comments below.